What separates a good story from a great one? Is it the detailed setting that brings the world to life? Or perhaps it's the conflict that pushes the story forward, leading the protagonist on a journey that will change them forever? Sure, all of these elements are important, but what truly separates a good story from a great one is the characters. Whether it's a comedy, thriller, or some grand adventure, the one thing that pulls us in is the characters. As humans, we find ways to relate ourselves to these characters or simply want to see them triumph. Sure, the backdrop of a fantasy or science fiction world piques our imagination, and conflict gives the story's protagonist a sense of agency. But when you look at the heart of a story, the most important element is always the character. Who were they when the story began, and how do they differ at the end? IDW has proven that they not only know how to craft a great story, but they also understand the importance of these characters in Sonic's world. The latest 2024 annual exemplifies how dynamic these characters are and gives us such a deep insight into their thoughts, feelings, and motivations. So join me as we take a deeper look into these characters and their latest revelations from the 2024 annual. But before we get any further, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And with that out of the way, let's begin. Fresh off the heels of the clean sweepstakes race, Serge finds herself chasing the high that comes with receiving praise from the public. Her encounters with the Phantom Rider have given her a taste of what it's like to be in the limelight, and it's something that she isn't ready to let go of. As fate would have it, Serge and Kit would be in downtown Westopolis when a trolley's brake malfunctioned. Serge decides to let Kit take this one, since he can easily utilize his hydrokinesis to grab the trolley. In my head, I couldn't stop thinking of the scene from Spider-Man 2, where Spider-Man tries to stop the train that's about to run off the tracks. Unfortunately for Kit, he isn't quite as strong as Spider-Man, and winds up being pulled away with the trolley. Serge ends up being quite disappointed in her partner's failure, but her train of thought is interrupted when she sees a chow parade crossing right in front of the trolley's path. This increased risk amps Serge up, as she states that the delicate approach was boring anyway. In a desperate attempt to save both the chow and the passengers of the trolley, Serge decides to slam into the side of the rampaging vehicle at full force, knocking it over. Feeling rather triumphant with her handiwork, Serge awaits applause, but she's surprised to find that not everyone is happy with the results of her actions. One passenger in particular ends up with a broken wrist due to Serge's hasty actions. While Serge took what she believed to be the best action given the dire situation, it still resulted in injuries and negative public opinion. This adds some new elements to Sonic's world that could be interesting to explore in the future. It's not too often that we get to see the public's reception to Sonic and Eggman and all the chaos that ensues with them. Seeing a citizen upset with the way that they were saved adds some interesting depth to the world. The result of this trolley incident is also somewhat reminiscent of the scene in The Incredibles where Mr. Incredible saves a train from crashing, but the injured individuals feel that their lives were actually ruined as a result of the injuries that they sustained. Injuring citizens clearly wasn't Serge's intent, but to make matters even worse for her, she overhears them comparing her to Sonic, and to them, she just doesn't cut the mustard. This whole interaction with the trolley brings to light the dynamic progression of Serge's character. The stories beforehand have laid out what a lost character Serge truly is. It's quite the tragedy that her mind has been twisted into such a mess by Starline that even her concept of what a hero is supposed to be is skewed. Her encounters with the Phantom Rider have led her to believe that being a hero is all about the praise, and who can fault her? It's all she hears about Sonic and his friends. What Serge doesn't quite understand though is that Sonic saves people, animals, and the world itself regardless if he receives praise or not. Sonic understands that he has the ability to help others and make a difference, and he does so because it's the right thing to do. However, Serge wants the recognition of being a hero for all her actions, but the reality is that good works often go unnoticed. A true hero does the right thing when no one is around. Back at their house, Serge and Kit discuss the Sonic cycle, which is something that Starline had brought up before. It feels like a meta commentary on the never-ending battle between Sonic and Eggman. Starline actually believed that his ability to recognize this cycle made him in a way superior to Eggman. Serge, on the other hand, has a different spin on this cycle. She believes that Sonic keeps letting Eggman cause trouble so that he can be the one to stop him him and receive the praise and approval of the public over and over again. Due to this, Serge wants to end Sonic at the first chance that she can get. There's a lot going on here. First, part of this has to be Starline's programming coming back into play. Serge was conditioned to hate Sonic, and I think that comment from the trolley incident really snapped that hatred back into her. Then we have her omission of Starline being correct, which is surprising to see her side with Starline. Serge still has what I believe are mixed feelings about him. In a way, Starline was a mentor to her, and the only person that she could look up to, but he was cruel and had no regard for her or Kit. Also, her concept of the Sonic cycle is such a skewed and close-minded view of how Sonic operates, which this isn't surprising for Serge, but it just goes to show that she is very out of touch with reality. Sonic is about free will and giving others a chance to amend their wrongs. If you haven't seen Ranni's philosophy of Sonic video, I'll link it in the description so you can watch it yourself. The point here is that Sonic believes there's always a better path. Even for someone like Eggman, there can be redemption. Serge clearly does not follow that same philosophy. I don't think she understands that redemption is something that anyone can obtain if they are willing enough. While I'm admittedly not the biggest Serge fan, I have to admit that the path that this character is heading down is rather intriguing. She so desperately wants to be loved by the world and thinks that being a hero is the way for her to receive that love. So not only is she going about being a hero in the wrong way, but tragically I think she's trying to fill an emptiness inside of herself by seeking this approval. Then there's also Kit, who comes off a lot darker in this issue. He begins to think about the world without Sonic and Eggman. What would that look like? With Eggman gone, Kit doesn't believe that there would be peril in the world. This too is such a narrow view. There are so many threats other than Eggman, and even with him gone, it's likely that someone would take his place. I chalk this up to being a result of Starline warping their minds. I don't think that these two can really understand things from a larger perspective, which, when you think about it, is really sad. But Kit thinks that there will be nothing for Serge to save the day from if they eliminate Eggman, which means she wouldn't be receiving any praise. So Kit decides that he could cause peril for her to overcome, because as long as she's happy, he doesn't care what happens to the idiots of the world. It goes to show that Kit is willing to go as far as letting others die as long as Serge is getting what she wants in the end. Of course, Starline had programmed Kit to serve Serge and make her happy, but now we see that he's beginning to come up with some twisted ideas of his own to please her. This story did a really good job showing us just how lost these characters are. Even when it seems that these two are about to head down the right path and start making better choices, we see that their understanding of heroism is flipped on its head. On Angel Island, Knuckles is resting under a moonlit sky, wondering what his friends down below are up to. He makes it clear that he feels alone, as he mentions that his friends are probably all on some crazy adventure together. His emphasis on together lets us know that he misses being part of the adventures with his friends. Something that we don't get to see too often is Knuckles dealing with the emotional toll of being alone. Interrupting his thoughts, the Master Emerald twinkles, letting Knuckles know that it wants to show him something. Accepting this, Knuckles closes his eyes, and he's whisked away to memories of him and his friends together, reminding Knuckles of all the good times that he spent with them. He admits that even though his life isn't as free as someone like Sonic's, he still values the life that he was given, even if it wasn't the lot that he expected. I really like this outlook that Knuckles has. Sometimes life gives you difficulties or hardships, and it's easy to think, why me? But Knuckles realizes that these things that we don't often expect in life have purpose, even if we can't see it yet. Soon a vision of Knuckles would appear to himself, and it looks almost lifeless. Knuckles says that without purpose and friends, he'd actually feel quite bad for himself. His destiny has led him here, and although he isn't free, he still appreciates all the good things that he has in life. Knuckles awakens from the vision of the Master Emerald, and his worries have seemingly disappeared as he now has a newfound perspective on life. Life devoid of purpose and friends would leave Knuckles a shell of himself. It's really interesting too that we get this story right after Serge's, because we see the stark difference between the two. Knuckles has found purpose and friends. It doesn't mean that he's happy all the time, but he does find comfort and peace in that. Meanwhile, Serge is like the vision of Knuckles, who has neither purpose nor friends, and her mental state is rocked because of that, filled with nothing but anxiety, hatred, and dread. While the Master Emerald at times keeps Knuckles away from those that he cares most about, he wouldn't have met them in the first place if he wasn't destined to watch over it. Seeing Knuckles thankful about his destiny and accepting that good has come from it is really refreshing. His constant struggle with destiny and loneliness is something that he will carry with him. However, seeing him understand that he has friends who will always care about him due to him being the guardian of the Master Emerald was nice. He even says that he has everything because of his guardianship to the Master Emerald. Knuckles is the last of his kind, so to him, his friends are his family, and even though he puts on a tough guy persona, it hurts him that he can't be around them more often. However, just having a new family is more than he could have ever asked for. The story wraps up with Sonic, Amy, and Tails coming to visit Knuckles as they tell him about some crazy adventure that they had just encountered. Unlike the previous story, this one is rather heartwarming and shows us a softer side to Knuckles that we don't always get to see. It's also nice to see that his friends would go out of their way to come visit him. They do, to a degree, understand that Knuckles is bound to his duties to the Master Emerald, but it doesn't mean that they can't visit. Little do they know how much that actually meant to Knuckles. The last story is, in my opinion, the most compelling of the three. It begins with the Diamond Cutters sitting out at a bonfire as they wait for Sonic to arrive. Unknown to any of them, Mimik is lurking in the shadows, waiting for his opportunity to strike. His inner thoughts reveal his past to us, showing the events shortly before Sonic Forces when Eggman took over the world. It's revealed that Mimik was once an actor who wanted so desperately to be in the spotlight, but found himself relegated to portraying minor roles. Before, I've compared the character of Mimik to Clayface, a Batman villain who shared the ability to shapeshift. Before he became a monster made of clay, he too was an actor, so I have to imagine that the writers had taken inspiration from Clayface. There's a few important details that we need to go over with Mimik's backstory. First, he says that acting in these minor roles entrapped him in a thankless cycle. Mimik is of the same mindset of Serge. Something that they both clamor for is appraisal from others. Mimik wanted badly to be the star. We even see him copying the looks of other actors. He even goes as far as to blame them when they get mad about him copying their looks. He feels like they don't want to share the fame. From Mimik's point of view, they're selfish. Then the Eggman War began, and Mimik would find himself in the middle of a war zone. He would survive by mimicking the appearance of Eggman's machines. While trying to survive the war-torn land, Mimik would bear witness to regular people taking a stand and fighting back against Eggman. This awakened something inside of Mimik, that feeling that he once had to be seen while acting, to belong to something greater. It was now rejuvenated. With this feeling instilled in him, Mimik would join countless groups, fighting alongside the resistance. Although, for Mimik, he would have a hard time truly fitting in with any of them. He even states that it's foolish to value the lives of your teammates over your own, which is pretty rich from the guy who thought that others were selfish. Mimik's mental state has apparently always been pretty bad, but when the Eggman War began, things definitely started to get worse for him. Mimik suffers from feeling like he's never truly appreciated or belongs. This void inside of Mimik would start to grow, becoming more encompassing as he almost let this darkness inside him for good. However, right before he embraced his darkness, a voice would call out to him. Whisper had seen Mimik shapeshift from a distance and was thoroughly impressed at his ability. She told Mimik that her team could use someone with his abilities as long as he was a good actor as well, to which Mimik replied that he fooled a whole Eggman battalion as he transforms into Whisper. She was quite amazed with his abilities, and Mimik was finally getting what he wanted most in the world: recognition. Whisper would bring Mimik to the Diamond Cutters facility and introduce him to the crew. In the twisted mind of Mimik, he states that he couldn't remember the names or the faces of people that he's worked with in the past, but for some reason the Diamond Cutters were imprinted in his mind, or as he says, they've become a stain that he wants to erase. This is likely due to the guilt that he feels over their deaths. While Mimik is terrible, there's a shred of humanity beneath the surface, and he's constantly reminded of it because Whisper is still alive. Mimik soon becomes an active member of the team, and uses his shapeshifting ability to infiltrate bases for them. However, on a mission gone wrong, Mimik would be caught as Eggman's machines detected an intruder. Right before Mimik could be shot, Whisper would save the day, jumping in front of Mimik with the rest of the Diamond Cutters in tow. The team fought back the machines together, but all their efforts would soon be for nothing as Eggman's reinforcements made their way to the gate. With some quick thinking, Mimik transformed into Eggman and ordered the reinforcements away, saving his entire team. Mimik would finally receive what he craved more than anything: praise and a sense of belonging. The most interesting thing here is that this is such a joyous memory for Mimik that he ends up saying it's dangerous for him to have. He clearly has an internal struggle going on, which makes his character so much more interesting. This is the most development we've seen with him. They've taken him from a two-dimensional character and given him depth. In a way, he feels like Golem to me. He's a character that's evil, but you start to see his backstory and you kind of understand that there was some good in this character even if it's fleeting. After their victory, the Diamond Cutters spend time bonding, and Whisper gives a speech telling her teammates how much they mean to her, even telling Mimik that she feels reassured by his presence. He completes this team. Mimik gets up and takes a moment to himself. He feels validated and wonders if this is what he was truly seeking and not the spotlight. But then Mimik reveals how torn he feels inside. In one sense, he loves being around his team. They're giving him the validation that he's never before received. However, he's hurting inside because he feels like he can't be his true self around them. He believes that his true self won't be accepted by his new team. If he reveals who he truly is, they'll just toss him aside, or so he thinks. Mimik's mind is crumbling here, and the sad part is, Mimik would most likely be accepted even if he revealed who he truly was. I think his friends understand that everyone deserves another shot and can be forgiven. However, in his weak mental state, Mimik convinces himself that his friends are the ones who can't be trusted. Mimik has fully convinced himself that all he knows is pain and betrayal. He believes that his friends growing closer to him can't be true. It's all an act, a performance, if you will. So, in order to make sure that he won't be hurt by their inevitable betrayal, Mimik turns to the one person who could help him get rid of them: Eggman. If you want to see what happens with Mimik and the Diamond Cutters, check out my video here. Like I mentioned before, Mimik can't let go of the past until he deals with one last thing: Whisper. Cutting back to the present, Mimik distracts the others and moves in for the kill on Whisper. Luckily, Sonic would arrive just in the nick of time, unknowingly saving her. Mimik then gives us some insight into what kind of a person he is now, telling the reader that he loves being arrogant and selfish, watching others struggle, but he can't wash the pain inside him away until Whisper is dead. This shows us that there's still conflict within Mimik. Whisper being alive is still linking Mimik to some good memories of the past, and he realizes in some sense that what he did to his old team was a mistake. But now he thinks the only way for him to heal is to get rid of Whisper for good and forget about the Diamond Cutters. In some ways, I feel bad for him. He seems so lost and confused and doesn't quite know what will fulfill him in life. It's something that I think a lot of people can understand. However, Mimik begins to fill that void with selfish behavior and slowly becomes a despicable character. Seeing that descent into madness really explains why this character is so evil when compared to some of the other villains. This annual was probably my favorite that IDW has ever released. These stories weren't grand in scale or things that set up huge events, but rather they were small stories focused on building the characters, and that's what made this so great. The characters in Sonic have always been the most captivating to me, and having IDW flesh them out is more than I could have asked for. Let me know in the comments whose story you liked the most in this annual: Serge's, Knuckles, or Mimik's. Anyways, that's all I have for you guys right now. Make sure to check out this video here for more Sonic lore, and make sure you're subscribed and have notifications on, as there is a lot of content heading your way with the release of Sonic X Shadow Generations. As always, I wish you all the best, take care, peace.
Eggman can't catch us now, we'll beat him somehow.